This is What's Not Sport. I'm your host, Will O'Connor. Another week of my unprofessional sporting opinion. It's episode 20 now, and man, do we have a few things to unpack. So, like I said last week, I'm planning on now doing 2 episodes a week. One that comes out on Monday or Tuesday, that is recapping the NRL rounds, any huge important things in the world of sport, and then obviously reviewing my AFL tips. And then later in the week, when the tips come out, or when the team list comes out on Tuesday night for the NRL and more sporting news might come out, I will be doing a second episode dropping on Thursday mornings. So that's a little PSA for all you fans. But we're here, we're episode 20. It's a big, heavy NRL, pretty much like usual. But man, oh man, do we have some exciting things to cover. I do want to speed run the AFL a bit, but let's just say I had a good round of tipping, and I was very, very pleased with how it all went. So, for some reason, yes, there we go. Let's run it. And obviously, it's Monday. We've just had Queensland selection just drop. Some of you would have seen my TikTok and Reel last night, and we'll touch on that in a moment, probably in 20 moments, but yes. Okay, let's hit it with the AFL tip review. So, let's kick it off. The first game of the round was Port versus Carlton. Then we had Sydney versus Bulldogs. We had the Gold Coast versus Melbourne. Hawks versus North Melbourne. Collingwood versus West Coast. Richmond versus Adelaide. And to finish off the week, another exciting game, Freo versus St Kilda. So the Port versus Carlton game, I did choose Carlton to win. They did not. But it only goes up from there, because the Sydney versus Doggies game, I tipped the Dogs. The Gold Coast versus Melbourne, I picked the Suns, so another one there. And then we go on to Hawthorn versus North Melbourne, dominating the Hawks dominating North Melbourne. Great game if you're a Hawks fan. They got the dub there. Collingwood versus West Coast, Collingwood got the dub, and finally Freo just took the win over St Kilda. Now, I'm alright with math, and 6 out of 7 tips is not bad in my opinion. So, if you listen to What's Not Sport and the last round for AFL, you probably would have been pretty happy with the results. Now, that is enough AFL. Let's go into NRL and talk about, the round we just had, which was very exciting footy in my opinion, and a lot of changes and news coming out. So, let's do it. First game of the week was Penrith versus Bulldogs. We then had Manly versus West Tigers, the Knights versus Raiders, Broncos versus Wars, Dragons versus Para, the Finns versus Rabbitohs, and Storm versus Sharks. So, the majority of the games were very close and exciting. There were a few blowout ones, but yeah, let's kick it. So let's start with the Panthers versus Bulldogs game. I tipped the Panthers. They got the win over the Bulldogs. Very close game. Penrith didn't score a try until I think it was the 60th minute. Cleary is the hero of Penrith at the moment. And the real question I'm asking is the Doggies pretenders, because we're seeing a Penrith team that has been struggling the whole season. They're now on a roll. And so I don't know if we're seeing the Dogs starting to fall off, if they're pretenders, or a Penrith just becoming a real threat. Now, let's take a moment and see what's been going on in the world of NRL. Like 4 or 5 rounds ago, Penrith were in 17th. They're now in 6th. That is a huge jump within 3 rounds. The Doggies, who have been leading since round 4, have now dropped to 2nd place on the ladder. we still need to see how these teams perform against. I guess I want to see more doggies. The dogs play more top, like maybe top 8 teams. Really see how they perform against them. And Penrith, I'm just not sure on how they're going to do it. Like, I'm still questioning, are they the real deal yet? We then go on to the Manly West Tigers game. I thought the Tigers would be good, but Manly did get the win. It didn't help that Law had to withdraw from the game the day of due to a boil. It really limited the Tigers' chance, but I thought Adam Dewey was really good for the Tigers, and he played a really good game. Towards the end of the game, Manly ran away with it. Garrick on the wing was obviously worked really well. He played a really well game, but my biggest concern is what the go with Tommy Turbo. You've now put him in the centres. He looked a bit, lost. I don't think he had any line breaks or anything stand out in that position. So I think just like a lot of Manly fans, I'm questioning what is the go with Tommy Turbo at the moment. Now, let's move on. Knights vs Raiders, up the milk. We are now leading the NRL comp. Number 1 spot where we should be. And I couldn't be more happier. Look, the Raiders shouldn't have let the Knights score that many points. A lot of errors in the second half from us. But we did have a perfect first half. Believe it was 100% completion rate. Barely any errors. And then we put 16-0, 16-0 the score at halftime. Not bad at all. The Newcastle Knights did struggle struggled a lot in that first half. Obviously, no Sharp of showing. Hastings then came into the game because Sharp's out with a ruptured spleen, I believe it is. It showed that there was something missing in that first half. But the Raiders were just so dominant and they played so well. And they were so fluid and with everything with that. The Newcastle Knights then didn't get much of a break. Well, they started scoring tries, but then they didn't get much of a break when Ponga went off with a foot injury, which has now been diagnosed as a Liz Frank injury, which I know quite well because I have had that injury. It could be at least 8 weeks out. I know for a grade 1, it's 8 weeks in a moon boot, no weight bearing, as in out of a moon boot. So that is concerning for Ponga. It now has taken him out of Origin. On the Newcastle side, I will just say Bradman Best is a beast, but we're going into Origin, and I know I'm about to talk about Origin, but Bradman Best has now been selected as in the extended squad, which means if I have a quick look, because I haven't checked the draw for this week, if Newcastle is playing, which they're not, so they've actually avoided that, because I was going to say there's no Sharp, there's no Ponga, and no Bradman Best. That would have been a very struggle. So that would have been struggle street for Newcastle, but they are showing glimmers of hope. Newcastle, they are starting to perform against top level teams. They just aren't able to get there. And the top teams are just able to hold on with their defense. Let's move on. The Broncos versus Wars game. I honestly think, I tipped the Bronx. They got the win. I reckon the Bronx are back. They are looking like the team that they should be. Well, they're performing like the team that they are on paper. They're a team that looks so incredible on paper. They're finally gelling and working so well. It's really flowing, which is incredible for them. They're now sitting 5th on the ladder, and they're now chasing down the Wars for that top 4 position. And with that, it's huge concerns for the Wars, with Metcalf now out with an ACL injury. Will they fall out of the top 4? I think they will now. Without having Metcalf, your star halfback, it does bring up a lot of concerns. And you've already had an injury and another ACL. So 2 ACL injuries of 2 of your best players, and it's going to be struggle street for the Wars. They're going through a hard time, so I think I see the Wires drop out of that top four, which is quite a shock because the top four has had such a buffer from the rest of the comp, and now it's closing with each week and with each loss as it does, but there are teams that are catching up with. Yeah, it's going to change the top four and how it's all going. The next game we had Dragons versus Eels. Tip the Dragons. They got it done. For Eels fans, Talagi faces a 3 to 4 week match ban over a crusher tackle. The game went how I was expecting with the Dragons to take the win. They then probably ran away with it a little bit. I think it was about 16 points difference, maybe 10, maybe 14, something like that. They had quite a bit of buffer room towards the end of the game. Now, the Dolphins versus Rabbitohs game was next. I tipped the Bunnies. They didn't get the win. The Finns actually really surprised me. They had a shocking week. Well, they lost to Newcastle last week. And they shouldn't have. And that's why I didn't pick them the next week, because I was really concerned going, you're losing to Newcastle. You might need a bye or something to switch you back. But no, they scored another fifth. The thing is, they had a great game, scoring 50 points again. The Hammer scoring 4 tries. It's not bad at all from Redcliffe. The Bunnies are my major concern after confidently saying last week that I think they'll make the top 8. I think they still have the capabilities of doing it, but they've gone from so closely beating the Melbourne Storm that they only lost by a field goal to then getting smashed by the Dolphins. Are we looking at the Bunnies being an inconsistent side and teams aren't preparing for him, which is allowing him to get back, or they're actually a decent team that does have top 8 capabilities, but the Dolphins just had a dodgy game last week against Newcastle, and they are actually the real deal? That is another good question. They would have scored nearly 220, if not more, points that they scored. I'm not saying for and against, but they would have scored, even though they lost last week, they would have, in the last 4 games they've played, they would have had, last 5 games, they'd nearly have 250 points scored, which is incredible stuff. So I think the Dolphins are a real deal. Now, the Storm versus Sharks game, not much you can say about that. I've tipped the Storm, went how I was expecting again. The Storm are back. I was a little bit worried after they did struggle against the Bunnies last week, only narrowly beating them. But they just had such a dominant performance against the Sharks, and it just shows why they are they're almost always in the top 4 in the comp, if not higher. It's just, they showed why they're such a good team. The Sharks are now a concerning side. I reckon they'll be dropping out of the top 8. I know there's still another 10 rounds of the season, but they had a good start, but now they're just falling on, and their problems are becoming a lot more prominent, and that's going to cause a lot more worry as the season goes on and teams focus. Okay, we're going to have to beat the Sharks to get into the finals, because it's still 10 games, but as I keep on repeatedly saying, the ladder is not that much of a difference at the moment. The difference to 8th and 17th is now finally broken out, and it's now 6 points, which is 3 games, where a couple of weeks ago it was only 3 points or 2 points to get to the top 8. The comp's spreading out. Now the Sharks have dropped out of the top 8 now after being there for the majority of the season. So I think they'll continue to fall as the season will continue. So, yeah. Now, the last game of the week, the Titans versus Cowboys. I picked the Titans thinking they had a pretty good game last week, but the Cowboys have bounced back. It was a tight game, and it's always a good Queensland clash. It was, not a bad game at any standard. Scotty Drinkwater was probably the difference. Like, he scored 2 tries and converted 2, so scoring 12 points all by himself. I know they've lost, but I reckon the Titans are finding a little bit of form now, and I would not be surprised if we see him moving out of that bottom 4. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 8 team, but I'm just saying they're starting to look like that they're a team that can actually play footy. Now, the Cowboys needed to get that win. If they want to be in the top 8, they had to beat the Titans. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in my top 8 anymore. So, that's my round review. Got 5 out of the 8 tips this week. I know, not my best. Definitely not my worst after last week's tips. But we are going to move on and talk about players that are now, like, a bit of talk about players jumping ship while changing teams, trades, new signings. There's still a lot happening during the season, which I find quite surprising. A lot of shifts for next season as well. So, one of the big ones, Selwyn Cobbo, is leaving the Broncos. He's heading to the Finns, Redcliffe Dolphins, on a 1-year deal. And now it is expected that the Perth Bears will be wanting a piece of Cobbo. So, I think that 1-year deal is good for Cobbo. Hopefully he finds some form again at the Dolphins and then goes over to Perth Bears, because he will be, greatly appreciated there, I think. And he is a fantastic player. I just don't think he's playing to his capabilities at the moment. Hopefully the Dolphins will help him find that form, especially maybe a pairing with Hammer, like Hammer as fullback, and then I think having him there will help lift Cobbo's game. So, but yeah, he's expected to get an offer from the Perth Bears to go over there in 2027. Now, this is a real sad one for Dragons fans. Jack de Belin has signed with the Eels in 2026. So, you're losing a staple player, someone that could have broken a few records for the club, and now he's off to Parramatta. Speaking of players going to Parramatta, there seems to be a few good players going over there, like Tigers' Taylor Da Silva. He's off to the Eels with an immediate signing. Like, he's off there next week for a 4.5-year deal. Like, there goes another Tigers rising star. So Parramatta is only getting stronger now. Like, next year, I think Parramatta will be a threat. They'll be in the top 8, especially with these 2 new signings. Like, yeah, really interesting. Another one, Jake Arthur is leaving Manly and is off to Newcastle in a trade with Paul Bryan effective immediately. So that's another 2 players that has made another during season change to a different club. So really interesting there. I don't know if I've just been paying more attention to it, but I feel like this is the most in-season trades that has happened in the comp in a couple of years. Like, you had Galvin, you had Dom Young, you now got 3 more players, Da Silva, Arthur and Brian, all moving clubs during the season. Like, I think it's just crazy how many people are doing that. And yeah, it just arouses more concerns about some of those clubs. Why are your players leaving during the season? Is it that bad? Or is the offer that good? Now, there are rumours. The next 2 ones are for Raiders fans. There are rumours that the Raiders have signed Jake Clifford in a 2-year deal. So Triple M has reported that. I think it's a good signing for the Canberra Raiders. It just means we have an experienced player playing that 7 role. But it also makes it very interesting for a contested role, because Ethan Sanders will want that number 7 jersey, and he doesn't have much experience at all in professional footy in A grade, and Jake Clifford is great. Well, Jake Clifford is a great player, and it just means if Ethan Sanders does get given that earns that halfback jersey, and Jake Clifford's there, Jake Clifford's going to want to start in that as well. So it makes the role super highly contested within the Raiders itself, which I think is great because it's going to always push each other and level up each other's game and bring something different to make them, okay, I'm unique in this way. This is why I need to get picked in the team. So that's good for the Raiders. And then sadly, it seems that Josh Papali'i is off to the Super League. He spoke to the Raiders CEO, Enrique, and just said, I've gotten offers from multiple NRL clubs, but I just can't do it. I can't go and sign another team in the NRL and then play against the Raiders. He just said he couldn't be able to do it. So he's going to go over to the Super League, it seems, which makes me devastated because he can still play amazing footy. I don't see why he has to go. And I know he's probably going, my time's coming. There's a lot more youth coming through the game now. I'm starting to get a bit older. Well, I am a bit older. I'm slowing down, but he is the best I've seen him look in probably since 2022 when he last played in Origin. And then he went into representative retirement. So it's really sad to see him go from the Raiders. But anyway, it's loyalty is what that is. The fact that you have got good offers from different clubs in the NRL and you just can't play against your team that you've been your whole career with. You go into a different comp overseas just so you can continue playing the game you love, just so you don't play against the team you love. I think that's loyalty at its finest. So, Big Papa, and this pod is episode to you. This is like the third episode of What's Not Sports that is dedicated to Papali'i. Now, Origin teams are here. Last night, the New South Wales side got announced and they're not changing from what it seems. So, fullback Edwards. On the wing, we got Toto and Lomax. Centres still Crichton and Mitchell. Luai and Cleary pairing in the halves. Max King still getting a good start. Reece Robinson, Payne Haas, Liam Martin, Angus Crichton, Isaiah Yeo, Connor Watson, Spencer Leniu, Hudson Young, and Stefano Atakamanu. So that's your starting 17. And then the extended squad. 18th man is Jacob Carraz. Good job to him finally making that squad. Lindsay Smith in 19, and 20th man is Bradman Best, which just shows what two good games of footy can do. Best has been out for a little bit. He's a menacing player, so having him, I'm not going to lie, as a Queensland fan, I am glad he's not playing because he is so good, and he's a scary man, but also he's just on the bench. He's just in the extended squad. Now, I'm not going to touch any more on New South Wales. That's done. I'm wearing a Queensland jersey. If you saw my TikTok or reel on Instagram or TikTok last night, you know I am very excited. So last night, before the Queensland team got announced today, there were a lot of reports saying, my GOAT is returning to Origin. Josh Papali'i is coming out of representative retirement for Game 3 of Origin. This is the best. To say that I had tears in my eyes is an understatement. We spoke before last Origin that Billy tried, there were reports of Billy trying to get Papali'i to come back into the squad and play, and he said no. But he's back for Game 3, which makes this even more perfect. And it questions me, he is so good that Billy Slater is calling him saying, we need you for Origin. We want to win. So This is Josh Papali's last season in the NRL, it seems like. He's going to go win a premiership with the Raiders. Now they're on top of that. Like, I reckon that's certain. And then, I just don't understand. Someone that is going to play Origin level footy and potentially win and be a defining player and winning an Origin series has to leave the club. And I really hope he gets an offer or a deal after this. But it just pains me still. But yes, I am so excited that Papali'i is back in a Maroons jersey. It is like, when I heard that news, I was like, this is a better feeling than Christmas. Like, this is one of the best feelings ever. Goes exactly how it went for his special record-breaking game for the Raiders, and it's just, man, I couldn't be happier. This is actually the best. But now, I've talked that, let's talk the team. We've got a few changes. Ponga obviously injured with that Liz Frank injury. It stirred up a lot of conversation. Hammer at fullback, Reece Walsh at fullback. We bring in a new winger. Could we bring in a winger such as Murray Taulagi on the wing? But no, we've gone a different way. So, yes, Hammer is the fullback for our Origin team. Our wingers, Xavier Coates and Val Holmes, is being shifted back to the wing. Now, Robert Toa stays on the wing with Coates, and Shabarsky is making his Origin debut in the centres, pairing with Val Holmes. I think this will be great pairing. We then have our halves, Munster and Dearden. After the last game, they both played incredible. I would be that back line alone. I'm looking at that and going, yeah, we can win this. Now we talk about our forwards. In the number 8 jersey, the prop, he's starting. My guy, Josh Papali'i. Bless up. Harry Grant still our hooker. Tino Fasamalawi as our other prop. And then second row, Ruben Cotter. Kurt Capewell gets to stay in another round of Origin. Super well for him after his performance last game. I think he's earned that. Lock, we got Trent Leora, and then off the bench we got Kurt Mann, Lindsay Collins, Pat Carrigan, and Jeremy Nanai. I think that was the defining factor of the last game. Yes, our forward pack did step up, but the fact that our best players, and I was worried about it, them starting on the bench, but it worked really well. Them coming on fresh, way fresher than New South Wales. Like putting some of your best players on the field after it's already been 20 minutes, and everyone else is fatigued, and then you're putting a brand new forward that normally starts because they are the best. Bang! It does so much damage, and we saw it, and we'll see it again. And then our extended squad, 18th man Reece Walsh, and then we got Jermaine Hopgood and Josh Kerr as 19th and 20th man in that extended squad. So, honestly, looking at that, we can talk about Origin for the next how many podcasts you want to. We will do one podcast next week completely dedicated to Origin. I know that's a lot, and I mean a lot of podcasts coming out next week. But it'll be worth it. Oh man, I am just so excited. Like looking at that, the Queensland spirit, the opportunity to do something that's never been done by a Queensland team before. Josh Papali'i coming out of representative retirement. It's just so exciting. And yeah, it's pretty big news. And I love footy, I love Josh Papali'i, and I love Queensland. So, Queensland will win. And yeah, that's all I've got to talk about now. That's been a bit of a hype. Well, let's wrap this up, shall we? Thanks guys for tuning to another episode of What's Not Sport. I will be back on, you'll get another episode from me on Thursday. Shout out to Josh Papali'i, my glorious king. Please let me know your thoughts, feeling. Follow me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that, Spotify. Greatly appreciate it. I love the support from all of you. Please, 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 just take a moment to realise how special this is and how much this means to Queensland. The fact that you have an elite player coming out of representative retirement to play. Also, as I've mentioned, if you would like to put in an application to become the What's Not Sports co-host, I am very much open to that, and I think it'll be very good. The podcast is probably going to get a new setup and a few new things happening next episode, if not the one after, or well, maybe next week. Maybe not quite the next episode because that drops on Thursday. Also, if you're an athlete or a person in the sporting world that would like to jump on and talk sport or talk about you playing sport or your impact on sport and all those things, please let me know. I would love it if you reach out and said, I want to come on the What's Not Sport podcast. It would be fantastic to have you. So, if that's What's Not Sport, thanks guys for watching and listening. And I'll see you next time. Shout out to Josh Papali'i.